In today's show, it's a hater's guide to the 2025 NBA playoffs, how Portland Trailblazers fans can root against every team in the postseason. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're revisiting our annual Haters Guide, giving you, Trailblazers fans, a reason to root against every team left in the postseason. We'll go through all 16 remaining teams and give you a reason from a Trailblazers-centric lens to root against all of them. Before we get into that, as we do, we've done it. I've done these. This is the third year that I've done one of these. I'm excited to do another Haters Guide. I enjoy doing them. I enjoy being a hater. A little bit of Blazers news. First, look on Monday for the coin flip to settle the lottery odds between the Phoenix Suns and Portland Trailblazers. We will know coming Monday afternoon sometime, but by the time I record my Tuesday's show, you're listening to Monday, April 21st show, but on Tuesday's show, we will talk all about sort of the Blazers draft position and their lottery situation and all of those things. After that is finally determined, we will do a little look ahead to the NBA draft because we will have that news on Monday. Look for that. The other thing you need to know is the Blazers aren't going to be winning any individual awards this season. The NBA today announced its finalists for NBA awards, and the Blazers nowhere to be found. Not surprisingly, Toumani Camara not a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He didn't have that type of season. He looks like he could have that type of season in the future. Didn't have that one this year. Most improved, no Denny, no two. Not a big surprise. That's kind of where it would have been a stunner to see either of them there, but certainly that you felt like they improved a lot this year. And the big awards, Rookie of the Year, MVP, they don't have a six man, Coach of the Year, etc. They're not going to show up there. We will track and see if Donovan Clingan lands on all rookie team and see if Toumani Camara lands on all defense team. But official, no individual awards for the Blazers this season. Okay, let's get into hating. Let's start hating. Here's what we do. We're going to run through every team that's in the postseason. I'm recording this after all the game ones. I've spent a long weekend watching NBA basketball, 4 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday. What a freaking glorious weekend. I love the first weekend of NBA playoffs. It's truly special. We'll run through all the teams and give you, as sort of a Trailblazers fan, Trailblazers-centric lens is probably the best way to say it, a reason to root against every team in the playoffs. And fair warning, we're mostly looking for these teams to crumble so they make a trade. Let's start in the 1-8 matchup in the East where Cleveland and Miami, Cleveland and Miami are facing off. For Cleveland, I think you just hope Ty Jerome walks. Hit a pretty monster fourth quarter in game 1. He's been really good. He's a finalist for Sixth Man of the Year. Would have been on my MIP ballot, I think. Don't have one, but I probably would have put him on there. He's very underpaid. He's entering unrestricted free agency. Maybe not very underpaid. He's underpaid. He's going to get a hefty raise. And maybe there is a world in which Ty Jerome both says I don't want, there's a ceiling for me here with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I want more. And the Cleveland says our roster is going to get really expensive. There is a number that they say for Ty Jerome that we are just not interested in. And, we'll punt some depth to make sure we can retain our top end talent. And what you're hoping is that Jerome walks in unrestricted free agency and the Blazers, the most they could offer him is something, similar to the full mid-level, assuming that they're, starting at about $14 million a year. Is that too much for Ty Jerome? Boy, would we find out in a hurry. But I think he can hoop, and I think that's what you're rooting for with Cleveland, is that either Ty Jerome proves he's too good and wants to spread his wings, or that the vibes end poorly and he wants to get the hell up out of there, even though they were an extremely good basketball team this season. In Miami, I think you're rooting that they trade Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, and 2 firsts for Anthony Simons. That's right. It's the Dame package. You got to do it. Miami's got to do it. What you're rooting for is that I don't know. I think for many Blazer fans, rooting against the Heat has now come natural. I do think like the specific vitriol is really online, and like in real life, who cares about the Heat? But if you are someone who's on the internet, maybe you do indeed hate the Miami Heat. So you're rooting for them to crumble and then have to trade the Dame package for Anthony Simons. That's right, the Dame package 2 years later for Dame diet caffeine free, but only in like a 10-ounce can. It's I don't like what is it that I don't specifically what does Miami have that the Blazers would covet? Khalil Ware or something, like I don't know, Pelle Larsson, depth there, like Nikola Jovic every so it's like I don't know. I think you're just rooting that they trade Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez Jr. and 2 firsts for Anthony Simons. Flipping to the other side of the bracket, these are always hard with the top teams. If you're a hater rooting against the Oklahoma City Thunder, like, how do you do it? What does that look like? Like, I don't know. The Blazers certainly don't have anyone on their roster that you could, like, that I can personally, maybe you can, that I could personally, like, talk myself into the current Oklahoma City Thunder coveting. Like, maybe there was a time a few months ago, like last summer, that you could be like, Jeremy Grant would help. And I think that was real. And then Jeremy Grant just like forgot how to make 2-pointers, and he's owed $115 million over the next 3 years. It's just like, yeah, probably not that. That's probably not the thing they covet. Like Anthony Simons, maybe if they need another shot creator, but it's like, I don't look at the way that they play and think that that's the thing. Maybe it will be when we get deep in the playoffs. I think that'd be interesting, but certainly winning a game 1 by 50 didn't make me feel like they were like, they could use another guy who could score. So I guess it's like center depth. Is it a healthy Rob Williams? It's like they have this like true moment in the spotlight where they're like, we could use another center. We need Duop Reith or Rob Williams, or like maybe they can talk themselves into 1-year rental of DeAndre Ayton. But I don't know. With these top teams, it's always hard unless they have somebody who's going to walk. And the Thunder are like extremely young and have all the good players basically locked up. So it's like, do you want Jalen Williams, Arkansas on the roster? Sure. Actually, he's fun as a backup big, maybe. But he's not that useful. Bouncing back to the East as we bounce our way back and forth and we continue to hate. Oh, I didn't do Memphis. Yeah, Memphis. Just kidding. That's the team who's playing Oklahoma City, and they lost by 50. Whoo, boy. Memphis could be heading for some pretty seismic changes. They made some moves at the trade deadline in order to shed salary. They salary dumped Marcus Smart and a first-round pick in order to have the money to re-sign Jaren Jackson and maybe re-sign Santi Aldama. But then they had to fire their coach with 3 weeks left in the regular season, which was a wild thing to do until Mike Malone and Calvin Booth got fired in Denver. So I think what you're rooting for after a team loses by 50 points in game 1 and had this like really bizarre end of season thing is that they feel like they have to implode a little bit, and the Blazers can maybe get involved in the implosion. In my notes here, I wrote down that you're kind of hoping like that it's you're getting out from you're letting them get out from like their big commitment to their trio. And I have Desmond Bane, who's owed 4 years and $155 million left on his contract. So it's like you're giving them that tax relief, Anthony Simons and Matisse Thybulle plus your 2025 first for Desmond Bane. You could convince me that that's Ja Morant. I think Ja Morant's harder to deal with just because like his personality and the baggage that comes with him. I'm not sure I would want to pay Desmond Bane all that money, but like, yeah, if you're rooting against him, you're rooting that it blows up and one of their young players wriggles free. I like Desmond Bane as a player, and I think he would be useful in the Blazers system in general, and they really need shooting, and he would help. Yeah, sure. You're rooting for things to blow up in Memphis. Let's hate a little bit more. Join me in the second segment. I got more things to hate on, and we will keep on giving you the hater's guide to the NBA playoffs. First, though, let's talk DoorDash. Listen. You know what time it is? It's the NBA playoffs, and that means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing you the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh. you score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more and use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. So, maybe if you're someone who orders delivery on the delivery apps, and you ever looked and said, like, my fees are they're too high. There's got to be a better way. Well, with Dash Pass, you get $0 in delivery fees. Free delivery all the time when you become a Dash Pass member, plus exclusive perks like this one. How much would you save over the course of a season? Here's how to play. Sign up for Dash Pass and unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 points in a playoff game, Dash members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with the $20 or more order and the code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right. Let's keep on hating, bouncing back to the Eastern Conference where you're hating on the Boston Celtics. And I guess what you're hating is that with new ownership looming in Boston, they look at the price tag for a team that doesn't win the championship. This is going to be key. If they win the title, this is troublesome. But the haters guide, what an important part about the haters guide is you're kind of hoping these teams flame out, right? You're hoping like there's, Cleveland doesn't get where they want to go. They lose to Indiana or whatever in the second round, and that's why Ty Jerome walks in. In this case, you're hoping that if the Celtics lose, I think the earliest they could conceivably lose is the Eastern Conference Finals, but you hope that they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals and that they take a look at the roster and they say, that's a lot of tax money. And they start to think of a way, how can we get cheaper? And they look over to Portland and they find Anthony Simons and they say, all right, maybe that's it. Maybe trading for Anthony Simons and giving up Derrick White is the path forward. Now, do I think the Celtics would do this? No, but you're a hater. This isn't about... I try to keep these within the realm. Like, I'm trying to keep them relatively reasonable, not like the stupidest thing you've ever heard. But a real hater's guide is that they say, like, this doesn't work mostly because it's too expensive. Is there a way that we can, like, we're still going to need shooting. That's something we value, and we think we can cover defense. Like, freaking look how freaking good Peyton Pritchard has come just as, like, by being competitive as a defensive player. And you say, well, like, Derrick White's under contract for north of $30 million through the 28-29 season. He's entering his 30s. How can we get out of here and get a little bit younger and also get cheaper because Anthony Simons is on an expiring contract? And the Celtics say, yeah, that's the move. And Anthony Simons and the picks to make it work. Is Anthony Simons and a first enough for Derrick White? Kind of depends on the specific motivations. I would say, like, maybe not. But it kind of depends on the specific motivations of the Celtics at the time. You need them to get walloped in the Eastern Conference Finals for that to come to fruition. I think Derrick White, just like as a archetype, a guy who's mostly a 2, so he doesn't have the ball in his hands all the time, but can toggle to be an on-ball point guard a little bit as needed and can really defend. That's like exactly the type of guard the Blazers would need to add to this mix. White would be their best guard by a lot if he joined the team, but you're hoping that Scoot or Shaedon Sharpe make that untrue at some point into the future. But I think that archetype, like the defensive acumen, the long range shooting, and the ability to play on and off the ball as like either a catch and shoot guy or a little bit of offensive creation on your own. Derrick White's he's ideal for what the Blazers could need, which is kind of why haters guide. The roster is simply too expensive to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. Time to shed some money, baby. In Orlando, I think it's just they finally admit that Anthony Simons is the truth. They got it. They maybe not Anthony Simons is the truth, but their truth is that they need Anthony Simons. Almonte Springs' own from I believe the northeast suburbs of Orlando. But like, yeah, they know. They say, like, yeah, bring back to the city beautiful. The Magic just, like, they can't. They're pretty conservative front office. There's not a team that typically makes in-season trades, but at some point they do have to admit that, like, they can't stop being a 7th seed in perpetuity if it's like Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and no one who can shoot whatsoever. Is that person Anthony Simons? Well, to the haters, it absolutely is. Look yourself in the mirror, Orlando. You know what you need to do. And like somehow it's like Anthony Black that becomes the problem, because I feel like that's the right type of player for the Blazers. He shot it totally fine this year. He just doesn't shoot with enough volume or enough or enough juice off the dribble to make it matter. But like second half of the season, I feel like Anthony Black's been a totally okay shooter to go with some good defense. They need more shooting, and they know it. Over on the other side, Houston and Golden State just finished watching game 1 of their matchup. What are you rooting for the haters when you watch the Houston Rockets? I think it's that they go big game hunting. And when they go big game hunting, that means that the Blazers can kind of get in the mix somehow. The problem is, like in the past, when I would say, oh, the Blazers work as facilitators, I don't know how this version of the roster works as a facilitator. Like, I just don't. They're up against it tax-wise. Like, they don't have a ton of wiggle room tax-wise and to take on unwanted money, because Ayton and Every Simons are still in the books for next season. So like other teams are not going to be like, yeah, we'll take that money back. Like you'd have to take, you don't have like a magic. You didn't get like true expiring money. So you enter the offseason with a little bit of wiggle room. You have 13 players under contract. So it's like, how do they work as a facilitator? I don't really know. But it's somehow, like I think if you're a hater, you kind of specifically for Houston, you kind of have to ignore the fact that it's hard, because it's like what a straight across trade doesn't seem to appeal to Houston for what the Blazers have from my perspective. Like watch them play and then watch the Blazers and be like, what do they desperately need that's on this team and is like gettable? They probably need like Denny, right? But that's not exactly the plan if you're the Blazers necessarily. So it's like they work as a facilitator, and the Blazers like somehow pry free Tari Eason. I know a lot of people like Jabari Smith Jr., so we'll say Jabari Smith Jr., but it's like, I don't know, the Blazers like somehow get in there and in some sort of large form trade where they're moving Anthony Simons or DeAndre Ayton and their expiring contracts. They also end up with Tari Eason on the back end of some large Kevin Durant or Devin Booker deal. I don't know if I believe this one, but that's how you got to do if you're a hater. In Golden State, I think you're just rooting for the sign and trade. I think you are finally rooting that Jonathan Kuminga, who's just like not going to play in the playoffs pretty clearly with Steve Kerr. You're just rooting that they finally say, yeah, he's gone. And when he enters restricted free agency this summer, you can work out a deal where the Blazers say, you know what, Buddy Hield turns out to not be that guy. What if you get a like facsimile of him and Anthony Simons, and like we will sign Jonathan Kuminga to a deal that like works with Simon's contracts, like for what it needs to be. So I think Simon is making like $26-ish million next year. You say like, what if we start Kuminga at $26 million? Now, are you going to regret a $26 million a year contract for Jonathan Kuminga? Yeah, you might, baby. You might in a hurry. But if you're a hater, I think that's the best thing to hate on the Warriors for. Like in general, you're just rooting for the demise of all these teams if you're a true hater. Bouncing back to the Eastern Conference, how do you root against the New York Knicks? I think it's that they realize that they just need more size up front, that the lack of depth in their true front court, like center spots, leaves a little something to be desired. And while obviously they're not going to play, they're going to play a short bench, that they do need a little bit more depth, and they are eyeing like a flyer on Rob Williams and are willing to include 2, if not 3 second-round picks to do so on that flyer. That's not great. But I also don't think the Knicks are very hateable. This is a fairly likable version of the Knicks, unless you are like really against campaign or something. You just do not care for how pigeon-toed he takes those three-pointers. Like, square your shoulders, man. What are you doing? Played well, though, in their game 1. I think that's it. Otherwise, it's hard to see them as straight-across trade partners, and I can't see like a tear-down situation where the Blazers would be able to get in the mix. Again, because the problem with this, and I've done this in the past in different ways, it's like the Blazers aren't the team. In the past, the Blazers have been maybe a team with a little more flexibility or a little more maybe like perceived willingness to trade some of their young players. It's like there's like a core that is of Scoot, Shea, Tumani, Denny, Klingon that seems untradeable. Then there's the next core of like more experienced, expensive players, Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton. Do they have trade value? No. It's like, no. I think like generally speaking, no. Well, like I think Ant probably is the most positive trade value of them. Ayton could, but I don't think he's going to have trade value in the summer as he more would have at the trade deadline when teams start to be like $35 million expiring money heading into the summer of 2026. Like, what's that look like for us? That could be more appealing. Jeremy Grant just like doesn't have trade value right now after coming off the season he's coming off of and at the price tag he's been at. Like, so it's like those are your more tradable contracts. They don't seem particularly valuable. Rob Williams, just the injury stuff, and then it's like a bunch of low price but not particularly intriguing youngsters on the back end. It's like Chris Murray's standalone trade value. Jabari Walker's obviously entering free agency, but Ryan Rupert, Duop Reith, that's like there's another tier of guys that are just like, yeah, sure, they might. So in the past, there's been easier ways to talk yourself into it. But if you assume that like the Blazers' young core is not going anywhere, it's like you're kind of looking for trades for Ant and Grant and Ayton, and it's like, can you find one for DA and JG and Anthony Simons? Best of luck to you. But I will right now. Haters' guide to the Detroit Pistons is that they want to bring home another lost son of Detroit's. They want to back to the Motor City. They tried it with Tobias Harris and they realized it failed. And they are willing for a straight across trade, Tobias Harris for Jeremy Grant. Now, would that be a good trade for the Blazers? Only for the money, because you get a little bit of flexibility with Tobias Harris's much shorter contract, and you're getting rid of the years off of Jeremy Grant. I'm not sure that Tobias Harris, I guess he helped them get a lot better, right? They won 30 more games than they did a season ago in Detroit, but I'm not sure I'm a Tobias Harris believer, although I do appreciate his personality a great deal. I guess Detroit realizes that that Tobias isn't the guy, and they're willing to take back another former player who, of course, played for the previous regime and not Trajan Langdon there in Detroit. But hey, whatever. Haters' guide. You gotta get Jeremy Grant. They need him. You need him. You just need. Hey, Pistons, you know what you need, and it's to bring back Jeremy Grant. Okay, let's finish out the show hating on more teams. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs have arrived, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. So, look, it's super simple to get in on the action on FanDuel because you can get on everything from three-pointers to steals to assists. So many ways to get in on your favorite player's prop or any player, I guess, if your team's already been eliminated, your favorite props for any player across the league. Plus, you can combine those live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big, so don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $250 if your bet wins. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Let's keep on hating. Bouncing back to the Western Conference, where the Lakers play the Wolves. And the Lakers got walloped in game one. The Wolves just shot the lights out. The Lakers just couldn't keep them out of the paint. They couldn't, once they got into the paint, they couldn't stop, they couldn't catch up in rotations fast enough. The Wolves, who take a ton of threes and are a good three-point shooting team, cashed in on them. Jaden McDaniels hooping. Dante DiVincenzo hooping. And they got enough. They got enough from everybody else. And I thought Ann Edwards played an awesome game, and they beat the snot out of a Lakers team that everyone thinks could win the championship. Not if they don't get out of round one, but still, you got to hate on the Wolves. So I guess what you're rooting for is that the Wolves kind of look out. They look out into the world and they say, like, we just have to get cheaper. We have to get cheaper. We need tax relief. And a trade centered around Julius Randle and Terrence Shannon Jr. for Anthony Simons. And I guess, what is their appetite for that? I guess the picks to make it work. I don't think you'd have to attach like 2 firsts to get that done. I don't even think you'd have to attach an unprotected first necessarily to get that done. But like probably something on the Blazers end, probably, right? Maybe you could convince yourself you don't have to. I'm fine with that. Let's call it straight up. Who cares? This is all fake anyways. Julius Randle, Terrence Shannon Jr. for Anthony Simons. It gives the Wolves a little bit of tax relief. They get a little bit cheaper. They get an expiring contract in there. They're going to have to pay Naz Reid. This way they have a clean way to do that and commit to that look, et cetera, et cetera. And you're just rooting for the Wolves to realize that they traded away Karl Anthony Towns and they're just going to be chasing a clean cap sheet forever, because the most important thing for this team now is just to get cheaper, you cowards. I'm talking to you, A-Rod. You better save some money and trade for Anthony Simons. Hate. If you're rooting against the Lakers, easy to do it because you're a Blazers fan. Congratulations. But I guess you're hoping that they just get embarrassed and they become desperate. I mean, you're always hoping for that, right? That's your natural habitat. But I think like specifically you're hoping for like just like a certain level of desperation is that they make an offer for Rob Williams. But I have a better one for you. What if the Lakers think like, okay, our window is short. We do not have a center. What is a way we can get like a starting caliber NBA center on this roster without a long-term commitment, because we're kind of blah, 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 and I've got it for you. The true hater's guide is that they look out into the world and they say, Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, yeah. You gotta go. You're out of here. They look at Jared Vanderbilt and they say, the years left in your contract, that just doesn't work for us. And they trade those 3 guys and a first-round pick for DeAndre Ayton in his final year of his contract. The Lakers are desperate, and the Lakers are thin up front, and they finally admit it, and the Blazers cash in. DeAndre Ayton for Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, and the first-round pick. True haters. Let's go. True haters. Bouncing back to the Eastern Conference, Indiana and Milwaukee. Indiana's another tough team. Like, it's hard to see what they fit with, but in the spirit of like fit with the Blazers, like straight across. But like in the spirit of Derrick White, I think Andrew Nembhard would be awesome as the Blazers' third guard. I think it'd be awesome. Like I just think he's an awesome defender. I think he does enough on offense. Like, he rocks. He's a good player. So I'm hoping, or you're hoping. How should I do it? We're hoping, dear listeners, that it looks something like this: is that for the price of saying we'll take on you're the frickin' Pacers. You don't pay the tax. You don't pay the luxury tax. You're one of the teams that just doesn't do it. You don't mess with that. You stay decent forever. You're a decent forever non-tax paying team. That's who the Pacers are. That's who they've been. They've been competitive for like 35 consecutive years, and they've never really housed that expensive of a roster, particularly recently. So you're hoping that, hey, you don't want to pay Obi Toppin all that money, but you do have Andrew Nembhard on a relatively reasonable contract going forward, even though it's a massive raise from his current rates. So you get Indiana out of the tax by offering them Rob Williams, Matisse Thybulle, Chris Murray, and a first-round pick in exchange for Obi Toppin and Andrew Nembhard. No one would be excited about that except for basketball nerds, but I think basketball nerds would be excited about it. And straight up, I don't think the Pacers would do that. But yeah, that's what you're rooting for, is that you feel the pinch of being who you are, a team that won't pay and knows that you can like bump your head against the 4th seed forever, and that ownership will be happy and everyone will keep their jobs, and you keep churning out. And like, I don't know, Chris Murray and Tease would help. That adds some defensive wing core. If Rob's healthy, he helps. And you just have to give up is a really interesting young combo guard who you drafted and paid. Hating on the Bucks. This one's simple. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I do think some Blazer fans I interact with are indeed rooting for Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks, and some are like very indifferent to it to the point of almost anger. Choose your own adventure there. That's another team in another city. Choose your own adventure there. But I think what you're rooting for as a hater is that it blows up. I really think you are. If you're a true hater, I think you're rooting for it blows up. The Blazers control these pick swaps into the future, plus potentially the Bucks 2029 pick. At least they control it now. We'll see what becomes of it. They owe pick that in that summer to the Washington Wizards in 2029. So but the Blazers have swaps in 28 and 30 with Milwaukee. What you're hoping is that they stink. Is that the Bucks are one of the worst teams in the NBA in 2028. So what you need, what you real deal Holyfield need for the Blazers is for them not just to lose, but for them to lose, for them to blow it, for the Kyle Kuzma trade to look terrible, for Brook Lopez to be aging, for the draft picks they've made, and some of the youngsters that they, changing AJ Johnson to Washington, giving up on some other youngsters early. You're hoping that it all just makes a certain large Greek gentleman look around and say, y'all didn't do it right. I'm going somewhere else. And whether there's an appeal of Portland trading back the Milwaukee's picks that helps facilitate something really magical with Giannis Antetokounmpo, although I doubt it, but dare to dream, or just in general, the Bucks being bad in not too many years from now, that this is the beginning of a true end. I think the perfect timing would probably be Giannis to leave next year, if you're really hoping they blow it up, because then you would get the cycle of 2028 when they might really stink there. But somewhere in that range where Milwaukee is bad into the future with control of their picks. True haters, that's how you root for it. And our final teams to hate on, the Clippers and the Denver Nuggets. Let's start with Denver. I think it is... It's hard to see how Denver makes the trade straight across, right? Because what do the Blazers want with Michael Porter Jr.? What do they even certainly what do they want with Jamal Murray? But what do they even want with Aaron Gordon? For where they are, it's Aaron Gordon's a pretty useful role player, but is that the type of player? But it's and also what could possibly the Blazers send to a team like Denver that wants to take a leap, right? What is their sort of leap trade? Again, it's Denny, right? But you don't, that's not what you're doing, right? That's not the Blazers. That's not something they will do or should do in right now. So I think what you're hoping is that the Blazers in a step one of series of deals for the Denver Nuggets is that they have to trade Zeke Naji and they attach a first round pick to send them to Portland. And the Blazers absorb the Zeke Naji contract and the 3 years, $24 million remaining on a dude who just doesn't play. The Blazers absorb that money and say, hey, we'll help you. That'll help you get out from where you need to financially, and then make some moves, make bigger moves beyond there. But for your troubles, we're going to need a lightly protected first round pick to facilitate, and the Blazers get in there and facilitate. And the final way is hate on the Clippers. And I look at the Clippers roster and I say these dudes are old, and Kobe Brown. It's I don't know. What would the Blazers want? And again, it's what exactly does Portland have that team covets that is an actually player that you would want to trade? Hard to see it, right? Hard to see it. The Clippers are expensive and a little bit older. They're a go for it team. They don't, it is, I guess Chris Murray would kind of fit their ethos a little bit. What does that do for you, right? So here's the real hater's guide. And join me here. You really gotta believe on this one. Here's what happens. The Clippers get laughed out of the playoffs. Intuit Dome, which had trouble selling tickets in its first year, is bizarrely filled with Denver Nuggets fans. A type of person that doesn't even really exist is somehow in beautiful Inglewood in Los Angeles County and cheering loudly as a road fan in Intuit Dome. And the Clippers crash out of the playoffs, losing in 4 or 5. I guess if they lost at home, they need to lose in 4. So let's call it 4 or 6. And Steve Ballmer standing next to the mild celebration of the Denver Nuggets beating the Clippers. Yes, indeed, the hapless Clippers. And Ballmer gets pissed. So pissed, in fact, that he is going to take aim at the Allen estate. There's only room for one Microsoft billion in this league. And Ballmer, with kicking off a summer of ire, somehow sends his powerful legal team to get control of the Allen estate trust, and figures out a way to legally force the Blazers to be sold. and they're purchased by a benevolent billionaire who both hires the right people and stays the hell out of the way and doesn't do the new owner Matt Ishbia nonsense and isn't like totally aloof like the early Tillman Fertitta days, and somehow magically steers the Blazers where you want to go. If you're a true hater, you're hoping that the mechanisms of billionaire angst and billionaire ire can work in your favor. The Clippers need to lose, flame out, and embarrass Steve Ballmer, so he is forced to pretend he has enemies all over the league and start striking up beefs, including one with the Allen estate. Does this seem like a likely scenario? No. But you're a hater, so hate on. Hope you enjoyed the program. Tomorrow we'll talk about the draft, because we're going to know the Blazers draft position, et cetera. We'll also do some player previews this week, and I'm trying to nail down an interview. Is what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.